A super way to start your day, quinoa. Hey guys, welcome back to At the Table. Sydney here, and it is National Mediterranean Diet Month. You guys know that we have a really great program here at the Cooperative Extension Office called Med Instead of Meds. It's focused on the Mediterranean diet and using that as a tool for prevention of diseases. So one of those things that is included in our Mediterranean diet is whole grains. And I wanted to really highlight one of my favorite whole grains today, which is quinoa. Quinoa is, it's called a superfood. It really, in the last, I would say maybe 10, 15 years, just blew up. People became obsessed with it because of all of the health benefits that it does have. It is a whole grain, but it's also one of the few plant-based proteins that we have that is also considered a complete protein because it has all 9 of the amino acids which make a complete protein. So we're getting lots and lots of protein with our quinoa as well, but we're also getting that fiber content in there. So it is just all around a great food for you to eat because it is loaded with so many different nutrients. So we're going to be using it in a little bit of a different way today. We have a breakfast quinoa dish that has become one of my favorites to make for my family, and also just something to make that's quick and easy. I'm not somebody that has a lot of time at breakfast, so I'm trying to find things that I can make that are really quick, tasty, and I can get a lot of nutrients all packed in one without spending a lot of time on that. So we're making that in just a little bit, but then we're also going to be making a little spinach, mushroom, Parmesan, quinoa skillet recipe. That's what we are going to start with. So our first step is actually going to be cooking our mushrooms. So I'm just going to put a little bit of olive oil in our pan. And I bought 2 different kinds of mushrooms today. I bought some shiitake mushrooms. They have a little bit more of a meaty flavor than your traditional mushrooms. Mushrooms in general, to me, just really take on the flavor of whatever you pair them with. So, most mushrooms, they do tend to have a meaty texture, but these have specifically an even more meatier flavor. The other mushrooms that I got are just your traditional white button mushrooms that are going to be our most common mushrooms. So they're already cut up. I just bought the pre-sliced. They are, I'm trying to remember if they're about the same price as the whole mushrooms, honestly. So if you don't really have a lot of time to chop mushrooms, you can absolutely just buy the pre-cut ones, and it's not really going to be that much more expensive for you. Now, shiitake mushrooms are a little bit more expensive. Those were $5 just for 5 ounces. So that's about $1 an ounce, which is kind of pricey. So you could absolutely just go with the more affordable mushrooms, those white button mushrooms, if you prefer to do that, save a little bit of money. I just wanted to try a little bit of something different here. So we're just gonna get those coated a little bit. I just turned on my pan, so it's not quite hot, but that's okay. It'll heat up and these will start cooking. In the meantime, our next step is gonna be chopping up our onion and garlic that's going into this. So I will get started on that. I already went ahead and peeled my garlic just to save a little bit of time here once we got started. And y'all know how much I love fresh garlic, so that is what I'm using here today, but you could absolutely do the minced kind in the jar. You could do just garlic powder if you prefer that. You just get better flavor with that fresh garlic. So if you are new to quinoa, I made a little, my son is nine months now, so I made a little dish for him to take to daycare for him to try, And my daycare provider was like, "What did you send to lunch with him today?" And I told her what it was, and she looked at me like I had 10 heads. And one of the things is when you say quinoa, it sounds like quinoa with a K, right? So she was thinking of the spelling and what she's probably seen in the grocery store, but she did tell me that she had not tried quinoa before. So it made me start thinking, well, maybe I need to do a show featuring quinoa and show some different ways that you could cook it. So some people are still learning about quinoa. It's still a new grain to them. Some folks have really only tried it more as a side by itself. And while that is good, I must admit, I don't love quinoa as just by itself. I enjoy it much better if it's mixed into something, for instance, like what we're making today. We've got those mushrooms, we've got that spinach, we've got some garlic to flavor it, some Parmesan. So it's not just plain quinoa. It's got lots and lots of flavor and lots of textures going on. Our other recipe that we have that's more of a breakfast dish, that one we're gonna be adding like berries to it and some cinnamon and really whatever toppings you want. But it's also, that's gonna give it a lot of flavor too. So I don't love it just as rice, but you could absolutely eat it in that way. You can try it, see how you like it. All right, I'm gonna finish up cutting this onion as well, and we'll see you guys back in just 1 second.
Most aging adults want to stay in their homes as long as possible. And as your loved ones get older, you want to support them, even when you can't be there. Star is proud to offer Star Alert. This new system is now mobile and has GPS compatibility, so your loved ones can live their lives and you can have peace of mind, knowing they can get the help they need with just the simple push of a button. The new Star Alert also offers automatic fall detection, so help will be alerted even if they can't press the button. Call and ask about Star Alert today.
Hey guys, welcome back. So we've got our garlic and our onions all chopped up. Next step, I'm gonna go ahead and add some garlic to this. So make a little bit of room. And we're just gonna kind of heat it up a little bit to get fragrant. Not long, it's about 30 seconds. So we've got a lot of really healthy flavors in here. A lot of good nutrients going on, and of course when we think about that Mediterranean diet, that's what we are looking for. We want to have lots and lots of those vegetables, choosing whole grains when we can, and our goal is really aimed at thinking about the nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals that we're getting in our foods. So we are definitely accomplishing that here. All right, looks good to me. I'm gonna go ahead, we're just gonna take these mushrooms off the pan and we're gonna throw them into our little plate over here. I think you could easily add peppers to this. You could add more onions if you enjoy those. So this recipe is definitely very versatile. Throwing those onions in there. We're gonna let those cook for just a few more minutes. Get my pan heated back up. So in the meantime, we are going to go ahead and start working a little bit on our strawberries for our next. I'm gonna wipe this off just so we don't have garlic tasting strawberries. Maybe we'll just flip the whole thing, huh? And I'll go ahead and start cutting these up. So whenever we're thinking about that Mediterranean diet, a lot of times we incorporate things like berries. So berries are loaded with those antioxidants, and they are one of the foods that we call a fat buster. So there was a study that was done to look at the different types of fruits and vegetables that really helped aid in fat loss, and most fruits and vegetables did. Berries were absolutely on the list as well. The only ones that were not really included on our list were things like corn and potatoes, which, shocker, that's one of the things that we eat the most in probably more unhealthy ways. So think about potatoes. We eat them in tater tots. We eat them as French fries. We eat them as hash browns, right? So those are all usually fried up in lots and lots of grease. So not that that can't still be part of a healthy diet. Absolutely it can, but it's not something that we want to make the focus of our diet every single day. Our goal would be to, of course, consume those things every now and then, but try to have most of what we eat day in, day out, be foods that are loaded with a little bit more nutrients. Now, you could absolutely do just white potatoes and then spruce them up in a pan with some other things. So think about peppers, think about onions, and you could add your potatoes in there, mix it all together. You could even add some mushrooms in there, but other ways to add extra vegetables so that we're getting a variety of vegetables in our diet and not just consuming the same stuff every day. That is our goal. We want to have a variety of fruits and vegetables, and that be the focus of what we're eating. These strawberries are perfect. I'm so excited that we are finally into strawberry season because it's one of my favorite foods for sure. All right, that should be more than enough. We'll just set those to the side. We don't really need the rest. I also got some raspberries to add as well, and you could do blueberries here. You could do anything that you really enjoy that's going in our breakfast quinoa. I know we're kind of getting ahead of the game here on what recipe we're working on, but we might as well, right? Go ahead and start chopping some stuff for things in the future. Now, if you're ever cooking like this at home and you do have this lull where you're waiting on something else to finish, you've got some time to start chopping up some other things, this is a great tip for you to start getting other vegetables into your diet, other fruits into your diet. If you've got that downtime, go ahead and start chopping stuff up because you're more likely to use it if it's already cut, because you've got your caps off, your strawberries, they're ready to eat, ready to go. You're more likely to go ahead and actually pick it up and eat it. Your vegetables, you're more likely to use those, add them to recipes if you've already got them cut up for if you've got a busy night and you're trying to cook dinner. So keep that stuff in mind too. When you're cooking, there's ways to start getting more fruits and vegetables into your diet throughout your week to prep without having to actually be prepping. So these are almost done. We'll give them just one more minute and go ahead and take a break, and we'll see you guys back in just a second.
Eastern North Carolina is a beautiful place where we gladly choose to call home, and we strive to provide the best communications services. STAR is committed to improving communications to all our service areas, because we want to improve the communities where we not only work, but also live. STAR Communications. We are neighbors serving neighbors.
All right, guys, welcome back. We have our spinach also done. I went ahead while we were on the break and started adding that in. We had about, I think it was 10 ounces of spinach that go in this. So it is a good bit. I think one bag is 8 ounces, so it's a little bit more than a bag of spinach. And that takes just a little bit to wilt down. So our onions were done, and I went ahead and started throwing that spinach in just so it could get started. And you can see it's all cooked down pretty quick. I did also add a little bit of vegetable broth as I was cooking that down. Our recipe called for us deglazing the pan when we did the mushrooms, but we didn't really need to deglaze. We didn't have a whole lot of stuff stuck to our pan. So when it was time for the spinach to go in, that was when we started to get in the situation of needing a little bit more liquid. So I added that in, and of course that spinach can start to absorb that as well. and we'll still have that good flavor, vegetable broth flavor in our dish. So that is all looking good. Just gonna move it around, get it mixed together. Our last step is gonna be to add our quinoa. So this is what our quinoa looks like. If you needed to look at it a little bit more up close, you can see in here, there's a little bitty grain. It's like a circle that starts to form around the grain. And this is your tell that it is done. So whenever you're cooking this, you want to look for a little bitty ring to appear around your grain, and that is that grain beginning to open, release, and sprout. Well, not necessarily sprout, because we're not sprouting, but you get what I mean. Cooking, it'll start to release and open up, and that means it is fully ready, fully cooked. It also, you want to make sure you're fluffing it, so using that fork, fluffing it with your fork, because it can be nice and fluffy, and otherwise it's going to start to clump together and be all stuck together. So it is good if you just added a little bit of olive oil, some good seasonings here. You could eat it that way. Wouldn't necessarily recommend just doing like salt and pepper and eating it just like this, although some people enjoy it. You don't know till you try it, right? So whatever you like, you know, you can try different things to start getting this superfood into your diet. But I just like to warn people, because some people are like, well, is it like rice or is it like pasta? It's more similar to rice. If you were to compare it to something, it's more like rice, but it's kind of its own food. And I don't want to say that it's like rice and you be disappointed because it doesn't taste anything like rice. It is just its own flavor, its own texture. But because of that, it gives a lot of flavor and texture to different dishes. So for instance, if you eat salad, if you enjoy salad, it's really great to cook it ahead of time, let it cool, and you can throw it on top of salads. You can do our recipe that we're doing next, which is going to be a breakfast idea for you. You could still eat it for breakfast with more of a savory breakfast. So pair it with sausage, eggs, peppers, onions, things like that, and do kind of like a breakfast skillet. That would be really tasty. So it is great to me mixed in a lot of different things. So don't be scared to try it just because you had it once before and you maybe had it by itself and it wasn't your jam. Think of it like pasta. If you just ate pasta by itself, maybe you'd enjoy it, but you might say, ugh, this needs something, right? Because you like to eat pasta with more things in it than just pasta plain. So just, you know, keep that in mind. All right, so we're mixing all this up. Looks good. Our last few steps of this is we have a couple different seasonings. Turn my pan down a little bit. We have just half a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. So I'm just gonna eyeball this here. And I mean, of course you could adjust that to taste. We also are gonna add in some Parmesan cheese. This calls for half a cup of Parmesan, so not a ton. And we'll sprinkle that over just so it can get nice and melty. One thing I do want to mention, whenever you are cooking quinoa, one of the most frustrating things that I have found with quinoa is it's so tiny of a grain, which you can kind of see it here. This is what it looks like in the store. It's so tiny of a grain that a lot of strainers, it will fall right through. So a tip for you, that if you don't have a strainer that's extremely fine mesh strainer, even our finest one that we have here was still a little too big, you can actually use a coffee filter to rinse your grain. You want to make sure you rinse it because otherwise it does tend to have a bitter, soapy flavor. The outside is coated with, it's called saponin, is just the coating that tends to be on our quinoa, and that is what gives it that bitter, soapy flavor. So if you don't rinse it, then you might kind of have a funky flavor going on. So make sure that you rinse first, but to help you with rinsing and not having to worry about it falling straight through your strainer. Use one of those fine mesh strainers or a coffee filter if you don't have one of those. All right, that looks good. Our last thing, because this is all done, if you choose, depends on if you like spicy stuff, you can do a little bit of crushed red pepper. So we're just gonna do a little sprinkle. I'm not gonna get crazy with this because my coworkers are probably gonna be the ones to eat this and I don't want them to have it too hot. And that's done. Looks delicious, smells delicious. We will taste it in a little bit. We're gonna take a quick break and we'll come back and finish up our last recipe.
Honey, do we pay our bill?
What bill?
The Star Communications bill.
No worries, honey. With Star's paperless billing and automatic draft system, I get a notification sent right to my phone. There's no need to be bothered with those paper statements, and our bill is paid on time every month.
Well, that's easy and convenient.
It sure is, honey.
Honey,
Yes, dear.
the bake.
Oh, right.
Hey guys, so we have our skillet done. So we've got our savory all finished with our quinoa. Our next recipe is gonna be a little bit more of a sweet recipe. So a common thing that we tend to have for breakfast is usually, you think about oatmeal, and people get kind of tired of oatmeal. The other thing that happens is you might make a pot of quinoa and be stuck with a lot more quinoa left. So we still had that and we've used a good bit. I only used about 2 cups of dry quinoa here. So that is another benefit to it, is it does stretch really far. You can make it with a lot of different dishes. But again, if you're stuck with a bunch of quinoa, you're like, Sydney, what am I gonna do with all of this? So this is a great way to kind of have your sweet in the morning, a little bit something different, and also use up your quinoa. So we are gonna be, I've got some oat milk here. This is just my milk of choice. You can choose whatever milk that you like. I like to use oat milk more for my recipes. And then also we have like a latte machine at home, and this is what I tend to use in my latte machine. But I tend to drink regular milk. So whatever you choose, your milk of choice, you don't have to buy this specifically for this recipe. It's just whatever is your preference. So got that mixed. I'm gonna hand this off to my handy dandy sous chef over here, and he's gonna throw it in the microwave for about a minute. So this is really just to warm it up. You could do 30 seconds to a minute, up to you on how long you want it to cook. Another way that you could do this is to cook your quinoa actually in your milk of choice. So I have seen different recipes that call for that. I've got a bunch of quinoa left over. My goal here is to use it up. So I tend to cook it all at once with just water. And then that way I can use it in a variety of dishes, and it's not gonna have like a vegetable broth flavor or a milk flavor. It's gonna, kind of taste like plain quinoa, and I can dress it up as needed. So another question that I have heard before is, what is really the difference, or which one would be a healthier choice for me? Should I choose brown rice or should I choose quinoa? Well, they're both great options. They both are loaded with fiber and are very, very healthy for you. But quinoa does have a little bit more of those healthy vitamins and minerals that are added to that than just brown rice. Brown rice tends to have a good amount of fiber, but quinoa does actually have even more fiber for you than brown rice does. Plus you're getting that protein in, you're getting lots of vitamins and minerals. It's got a pretty large list of vitamins and minerals that are included in our quinoa dish, and they're good sources. So that means they're not necessarily gonna be a long list, but just have small amounts. It's got a decent amount, about 15% to 20% of some of our different vitamins and minerals in that. All right, I think we're done. Thank you, sous chef. So it looks good, it's nice and heated through. We're just gonna stir that up. You could, of course, adjust the milk here if you don't want it to be more soupy. I like it like this, I think it tastes fine. I tend to add berries and things like that to it, so it just has a lot of flavor and texture. But we have a cup of quinoa and about half a cup of milk and you adjust that to your preferences. So next thing that I'm going to be adding is some berries on top. Actually, first, before I do that, we're doing our base here before we add our toppings. I'm going to add a little bit of maple syrup. So not much, but this is just a touch to sweeten it up. I do want to mention and keep in mind that this oat milk, even just the creamy kind, this has about 4 grams of sugar added to it. So I'm adding a little bit more sugar to it just by adding that syrup in there. If you do just a plain milk, you know, you might still need, I could actually eat this without really adding the syrup to it because my oat milk has just a little bit of sugar. But if you're doing plain milk, you definitely probably want to add maple syrup. Honey would be fine here. Any sweetener of choice that you like, but just be mindful of the amount you're using and kind of go light there because we don't want to add too much sugar. All right, I just added cinnamon to taste. I like a good bit of cinnamon in mine. I love the flavor of cinnamon, so I'm just going to stir that up. And now is the fun part, which is the topping. So this is my base. You've got your milk, you've got your quinoa, and then your cinnamon and a sweetener of choice if you choose to add that. So up next, I'm gonna add some berries. So I'll just kind of sprinkle these on the side. I'm gonna try to make it look pretty for y'all. And then we went red as our theme, I guess, today, because I just have a couple different kinds of red berries here. I think blueberries would also be delicious, blackberries. And then I'm gonna add some almonds to this. Coconut flakes would be delicious. Peanut butter is also always tasty. Those are just some other ideas for you. Walnuts would also be good. So really up to you what you add. And that's it. It's ready to eat. So very simple, very easy. Again, something that you could make if you're running out the door, but it's loaded with lots of those vitamins, minerals. Fiber is gonna help to keep you full, and it's really tasty. So I hope that you will try our recipes today. Try out quinoa. Let me know what you think. Don't be scared of it. It's really good and it's really good for you. See you guys next time on At the Table.